What happens during the first-time experience can make or break any app. To ensure users don't delete your app after the first try, you must successfully onboard and engage them during the first interactions. In this video, I will describe the concept of onboarding and provide a few common onboarding techniques for web and mobile apps, along with tips on how and when to use them. Onboarding is a human resource term that was borrowed by UX designers. Onboarding is a process of making new users familiar with the app. Good onboarding experience increases the likelihood that first-time users become regular users. Should I design onboarding for my app? To answer this question, you need to evaluate the complexity of your product. Once someone opens your app, they need to know how to use it. Most apps don't require onboarding. If your app is self-explanatory, you can safely skip onboarding. You might need an onboarding strategy if your app contains non-standard interactions. For example, you use non-conventional gestures as the primary method of interaction. Your app has fairly complex workflow. For example, it can be a complex business product. You did a major redesign of your app and want to introduce existing users to new features and changes. Last but not least, your app introduces a brand new concept itself, which might be unfamiliar to your users. If you are unsure if your app needs onboarding, test it without an onboarding first to see if users face problems interacting with their product for the first time. Now let's discuss the onboarding techniques, and walkthrough is the first in our list. It's perhaps the most popular way of introducing an app to the first-time users. Walkthroughs can make any formats, but a swipe-through set of static screens is by far the most common form. Every second app available in the market shows this type of onboarding during the first launch of a mobile app. Unfortunately, a walkthrough is not the most elegant way to explain the core functionality of a product or demonstrate its value to your users, because it blocks users from doing exactly what you want them to do: use your product. Instead of interacting with your product, users have to go through a series of screens that tell them what this app is all about. No wonder why the vast majority of users prefer to skip this walkthrough. When you use walkthrough to explain your app's core functionality, you increase your users' cognitive load. You are giving too much information to your users at one time. And since this information is provided out of the context of interaction, users will likely forget everything they see on the screens once they finish the onboarding. It's possible to slightly improve the effect of this technique by using animation and reducing the number of slides. Animated walkthroughs are more engaging than static ones, since animation is excellent at grabbing user attention. If you still want to use walkthrough, you shouldn't use them for value proposition. Users already choose to use your app. They have a clear idea of the benefits they will have. Try to use a maximum of 3 slides, add animation to make the experience more dynamic, and offer a skip button to allow users to skip this part. It's always better to explain how something works in the context of an operation rather than present a slideshow of static instructions before users get started. And the second technique, which is called the interactive tour, can help us with that. Interactive tours are user-guided tours, when tutorials are only triggered when the users reach the appropriate point in their journey. The best way to learn anything is to learn by doing. That's why the best example of interactive tour is a practical exercise in which users are taken into a dedicated flow to complete tasks that represent main interaction of the app. Duolingo uses this technique to educate its users. Users are invited to do a quick test in a selected language before they start using the product. Here is how to make the most of this technique. Make the interactive tour contextual. Trigger the tour when the user reaches the appropriate point in their experience. Let users complete the tasks themselves, and ensure that the tasks that users will complete resemble real tasks that actual users want to do in your product. Visual hints are the next technique on our list. Visual hints appear on the UI and assist users in better understanding of how to interact with app interface. This technique is especially useful for screens that contains a lot of interactive objects or unique navigation method. When you use visual hints, it's better to avoid showing all of them at the same time. Similar to long upfront tutorials that we've discussed before, visual hints require users to work upfront. Users have to commit all the information to work memory. In practice, this is hardly achievable because our short-term memory cannot retain much information. And because there is no context, the interface seems much more complicated than it actually is. It's better to minimize the number of visual hints and show them at the right time and place. A contextual or just-in-time onboarding approach is an excellent way to avoid screens full of visual hints. Contextual tips can be found in Slack web app. The app minimizes the number of instructions by focusing a user's attention on a single primary subject. An even more interesting solution can be created with animation. Hint motion in this example shows how to perform the dismiss action using a simple swipe gesture. Visual hint should be well designed. Don't show visual hints for every possible action a user can perform on a screen. If you think that a user needs to learn a lot of instructions to use your product, there is a high chance that your UI is not intuitive, and you need to redesign it rather than apply bandages like visual tips. Show one tip at one time and use animation to educate the user. When we think about a product, we always imagine a product with data. Content is what provides value to most apps. It's a primary reason why people start using apps. However, it's critical to consider places in the experience where a user might not have content yet. Such places are called empty states. Here you can see an example of an efficient empty state that provides no guidance. It acts as a dead end for the user journey. Instead of leaving an empty state blank, you should use it effectively to guide, educate, and prompt. Even its empty state is meant to be a temporary step, you should maximize its communication value for users. In this example, we can educate users on how to create a new challenge. Another way to use empty state for onboarding is to set expectations. You can show the user what the screen will look like when it's populated with actual data, and tell them with words how to achieve that. Think about onboarding as a user flow, how users will go from one screen to another and when they can see an empty state. Don't design dead-end states. Add text and call to action buttons that help the user move forward. Empty state should also help users understand the context and set expectations for what will happen next. Experience customization is the last onboarding technique on our list. Sometimes app requests users to provide access to specific functionality or personal data to be able to customize the experience. For example, the app might want to send a user a notification to let them know their friends are around. If you want to ask for permission, always explain why you ask for a particular thing. Keep it brief and explain why you need access to data or features, and allow users to decline the request and decide later. Before designing your app's onboarding, stop and think about what kind of experience first-time users should have, and choose the technique that will help you achieve that. If you like this video, please subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll never miss a new video. Thank you!